Chicken pot pie with a nice flaky crust. What more could you ask for? Hello, howdy, and welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Catherine and I'm the Aerogarden Homesteader. Today, I am making pie crusts. I have some plans to make a chicken pot pie. I'd like to make some hand pies. So, I am going to just make a big batch of pie crust. So I need 5.5 cups of flour to get started. And this is a 1/2 cup measuring cup, so it looks like I'm putting in a lot, but it's 1/2 cup. Alright, here we go. Now I need 2 teaspoons of salt. I am using a kosher salt, so you use what you have. I might put in a smidge bit more. Okay, I'm going to mix that together. And now I have a pound of lard. So I always grew up with lard crusts and I like them quite nicely, but you can put in shortening or butter. It does not matter what fat you use. Use what you want to use. I believe that this recipe is very similar to full butter recipes, so it doesn't matter what fat you use. I believe I've done this one with shortening in the past. Boy, this wrapper does not want to come off. Okay, well, we will just work around it. This is 1 pound. I will be putting in the whole thing. I know it sounds like a lot, but this recipe makes 6 crusts. This is just room temperature. I'm not doing anything special to it. It's just going in as is. It's actually nice to do a big batch like this, so the pie crusts, you can save those in the fridge for a couple days, or the freezer for even longer, depending on how well you wrap it. And if you really want, you can make your meal. So if you're doing like a chicken pot pie or a pie, you can make the crust, put your filling in, and freeze the whole thing, and then wrap it really well. And then you've got like a ready-made dessert or a ready-made meal for whenever you want it. Now obviously there is a shelf life to this. You wouldn't want to leave that in there for 3 years, but if you want to make something over, you know, the summer with fresh fruit and then have it for the winter, this is the best way to do it. Okay, well I think I got everything out of there. Knife is probably not the biggest. The knife was probably not the best way to do this, but okay. I'm just going to clean that knife off. And then we just need to work this into the flour. And I kind of want this to resemble like coarse oatmeal. Sort of like, not peas. I want it to be slightly finer than peas, but it's okay if you have a few spots where it's a little bit, you know, you got a few big ones, a few small ones. Having that mix of different textures will help with the, you know, the layering and the fluffiness of your crust. So I'm just going to work it in. This will just take a little while. My counter is clean, my hands are clean, so all of this stuff that I am losing out of the bowl, I can reclaim once I turn everything out on the counter, because this is messy. Okay, well, that's what it's looking like. This is what I want. So these pieces, they do break up, but I want a mix. I want a mix of big pieces and little pieces. Big pieces, little pieces. It's a crumbly mess. Some pieces are smaller than peas, some are bigger, and that's fine. I'm clean up this plastic. Okay, the next step, a measuring cup here with an egg. I'm going to crack the egg in. It's messy hands. I'm going to use the knife just to break that up a little. Playing well. I'm going to get my vinegar out And I want 1 tablespoon of vinegar. And I will make sure to put the recipe below in the show notes. If you want to find this online, it's called the Tender Flake Pie Crust recipe. That's the one I grew up with. But I'm sure there are lots of similar recipes. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for. But this particular one is from the Tender Flake Pie Company. Or the Tender Flake Lard Company. Okay, so I put my egg in, beat it up a little bit. I put in my 1 tablespoon of vinegar, and I used water to bring it up to 1 cup. That's important. Now I'm just mixing everything up a little bit more, and I'm going to put this in. I wish I had a bigger bowl. This would work a lot better, but I'm going to put some of this liquid in, and I'm just going to toss it around a little bit. I don't want to work it too much. I just want to toss it around and then add liquid as needed. It may not take all of this liquid. If it does, great. If it doesn't, whatever. It takes what it takes. I'm just going to toss it around, fluff it up, try to get rid of most of the dry spots. I do not need to get rid of every single dry spot. When I bring it together, that will help it. It'll help hydrate the rest of those dry spots. Okay, we're starting to get there. Let me see. I think it is still a little dry on the bottom. I might be able to remove some of this wet stuff on top. See, that's holding together. It's kind of the same technique I use when I make shortbread. So I will, like shortbread cookies. Sometimes it's easier to take out a portion of it and work it up and leave the rest in the bowl, all the dry bits, and work those separately. So see this part on the bottom? It's really dry, but it's got some wet stuff mixed in with it. So the wet stuff is holding together. It's this dry stuff that is still really dry. I'm going to put in a little bit more. I'm going to fluff it up. Ooh, that's really close. That might be there. Don't feel you have to use your hands. If you have a pastry knife and you want to use it, or you have 2 knives and you just want to use those, go right ahead. I find sometimes it's easier to just get in with your hands. It's good to know what something is supposed to feel like. One of these days, so I've been making tortillas every once in a while, especially in the winter, because it's kind of nice. It's a fun activity. Kids like to help. But it's really important to sort of feel what the dough feels like. That way you know you've kneaded it enough, you know you've got enough water in it. And it's kind of the same with some of the other stuff when you're baking and cooking. What it feels like, what it tastes like. Okay, so I got a bunch of separate balls here. I'm going to bring them all together, and I'm going to get all this dry stuff that sort of fell on the counter, and bring it all in. Okay. So, fold it. Try to not drop any on the floor. Fold it. This will kind of create a few layers. This is not really like a butter crust where you get like lots and lots of lamination and layers, but you know what? It doesn't hurt to kind of fold it up a little bit. This is a good way to work it without overworking it. Just pressing and folding. Okay, so I'm going to go gather up all of the bits on the counter. Okay. See, I do have a little bit left over. Maybe a tablespoon and a half, 2 tablespoons. Okay. There we go. And I should have a bench scraper to do this, but hey, use what's available. Okay, I'm going to divide this up into, it says it'll do 6 crusts, but I might divide that up that way. I might do this one. So I'm going to need a top and bottom crust to do a chicken pot pie. So I'm going to keep this one for the chicken pot pie. I'm going to save these other ones separately and use those for hand pies. I'm going to make this one a little more oblong so that I can cut it up, make it easier to roll it later. These ones, it doesn't matter what. If you pre-shape it, it helps with the rolling out, making everything circular. But since I'm pretty much doing these for hand pies, I'm just going to kind of square them off a little bit. There we go. That's that. So I'm going to wrap these separately, and I'm going to put them, this one's definitely going in the fridge, because I will use this one probably in a couple of hours. So I can, ooh, I don't know if I'll be able to get that done for dinner, but I do want this to chill a little bit. These other ones I might actually throw in the freezer, because I'm not 100% sure when I'm going to do the hand pies. I just know I'm going to do them soon. And I will take you along for that journey. So keep an eye out for that. But these will go in the freezer for now. This one's in the fridge. I'm making a chicken pot pie filling. I'm going to put it in the crust. This is just throwing this quickly together, and I'll just take you along with me, but this is going to be sped up. I'm going to throw in some celery from the Aerogardens, probably a few herbs if I find some that I like. I'll just be making a simple roux, flour. I'll add a little more butter once the onions are cooked. I'll add in a jar of home-canned carrots and probably some peas if I can find some, maybe some corn. I'll just throw in whatever looks good. I also have some, so that can of chicken that didn't seal very well. I don't know when that video came out or is coming out. I will post a link for it up in the cards just so you can see how that came together. But I had one can that didn't seal very well, so I'm just going to throw that in here with the broth that's in it. And I have some broth in the fridge as well that needs to get used up, so I'll use that to help make the sauce as well. I don't know how much filling this will make. I would like to get at least one pie crust out of it. I suspect I'm going to get more than one pie crust, so we will see. But I will just speed through this. I will roll out some crust. I will get this in, and I'll go from there. Just so you can see, this is some of the celery I harvested from the Aerogarden. I'm going to use it leaves and all. If I find any leaves that don't look the best, I will just pluck those off and not use them. Putting in a little thyme. Green onion I saved. Some heavy whipping cream. Put in a little bit of that. This is flour and butter mixed together to thicken it. It's kind of like a reverse roux. Get it over my thumb. I'm going to stir that in, let it thicken, see if I need more. Then I will cool this up so I can put it in the pie shell. A canned potato I'm going to put in, which I totally forgot about. Okay, chilled for a little bit. It's not perfectly chilled, but kind of running up against a time crunch if I want to eat this for dinner, so it's getting rolled out. Normally I would also chill it in the fridge after I have rolled it out and filled it, but I, again, may not have that luxury today. Okay. I saved some for the top, get a little bit more for the bottom. Create a little bit of a disc. Pinch things together as you go. Make sure you keep down a fair amount of flour, but not too much. That's a fine line. And keep it moving. That will help prevent stickage. close. The piece might not stay on. Okay. Do another test. I might do it. So you can fold it into quarters, or you can roll it over the rolling pin and carefully rip a piece off. And carefully lay it in your pie plate. Now the trick is, don't pull when you're putting it in. Like, don't tug at it because it'll shrink. You just kind of want to ease it in there, push it down instead of stretching it. So see, there's a bubble here. I'm lifting this part up and I'm pushing it down instead of stretching it to fit in. Oh, guess my oven's ready. Okay, then you can fill in gaps. Just want to ease it in. Make sure it goes all the way to the bottom. Now I am filling this with filling before cooking it. I'm not blind baking it. So what I want to make sure I do is that I don't have any holes in the bottom, because if I do, the filling will leak out and it could cause sticking. Now there's plenty of fat in here, as you saw by the pound of lard I used. So I'm not too concerned about greasing this beforehand, but I definitely don't want any filling getting under there and causing problems after. So, as you saw, I just trimmed it off close enough. Okay. I'm going to roll out the top and then I'm going to fill it. So these pieces can be used again, but generally it's for like smaller things where you don't care what the dough is like at that point. I just use it. Now since my filling is pretty hot, I'm going to want to fill that at the last second before topping it and then creating vents. Again, just because I had a time crunch. If you start with a square, you end with a square. If you start with a circle, you typically end with a circle. Just something to keep in mind as my square comes together. Oh, well, that was lovely. Ten out of 10, don't recommend. Okay, let's see if we can get that to seal up a little bit better. I'm going to use a little bit of this to fill in this spot here. And let me see. Close. And I've probably stuck to the counter. It's important to keep it moving. There you go. That looks good enough. I might go with that. I'm going to get this filled up with the pot pie filling. I'm actually going to use a slotted spoon and add in the amount of sauce that I want, because I can always save the rest of it and turn it into like a soup. So I'm going to scoop out a lot of the chunks. Okay, now I just need to find a spot for this, which I don't have. Okay, see if we can get this up onto the rolling pin. Fold that a little bit better. Okay. There we go, loaded. Even though I used a slotted spoon, it's still got quite a bit of sauce. And I did get a little sauce on the edge here, so I'm just going to roll with it, and that'll help seal a little bit better. Let's get this on. There we go. Now I'm going to just tuck the extra under. There's not a lot of extra, but I'm going to tuck it under. A little too much there. And kind of flatten it down a bit. Oh yeah, that's a lot of extra. This pie dough can be saved for like hand pies or pie dough cookies. You brush a little butter on it, add some cinnamon sugar or whatever you like. There you go. And then you can do knuckle, finger, but you just want to press one thing between two, and that'll help. It's called crimping. It'll help crimp it together, prevents leakage. You can just use a fork and sort of mash it down on the edge. That'll also create a nice decorative edge. If you use the fork technique, it doesn't stick up quite as much, which is kind of a good thing because then it doesn't get as dark. But this one does stick up a little bit, so it does kind of get a little dark. Now, I have a cookie sheet with a silk hat, so I don't have a major mess to clean up. I also have this to protect the crust. You can just use tin foil as well, doesn't really matter. Oh no! Okay, I guess we're going to get a dark spot. And then, finally, I'm going to drop something on the floor. Air holes so it can vent. And then in the oven it goes. Probably for about an hour. If you found this video useful, it would be really nice if you'd like and share so other people can find it. I have more videos coming along, so make sure you subscribe as well. Keep informed of when they come out. A little overdone in the center, but it couldn't be helped. And I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.